It's quite cold outside though, isn't it?
Yes, everything's very... First question, how do you get to be in Singing Kettle?
Well, long process was, I was the stage manager before I was in it.
Yeah.
But I always used to sneak on stage in little roles and little parts that they would put in for me. And then when Siliver Arts, who run the company, their daughter left.
Yeah.
So they asked me if I would step up from being stage manager to being in the show full time. So we did one crossover show where there was 5 of us in the show, and then Jane went in and did her rock and pop thing at night, and I took over. Didn't wear her frocks, thankfully, but they gave me my own costumes. So that was kind of it. So it was I first did a show for them in 1992. I became the full-time stage manager in 1997, and I joined the cast, just doing the cast, in 2001.
Cool. Second question, what quality do you need to be in a Singing Kettle?
I think you have to be prepared to be a bit silly, because kids quite like, I find, if you say something and it makes you look a bit sillier than they are, they love to correct you. So if I say something really silly to a kid, they go, no! And they love that sense of power that they're able to turn around and say, no, don't be silly. So I think a sense of fun, a sense of silliness is probably what I bring to it anyway. So I like to think.
What makes a good Singing Kettle song and why?
Question. I would say it's catchy, and you can start singing it yourself after hearing it a couple of times. We have people coming to us and say, I was singing your song, I got up to go to the loo at 2 in the morning, and all I could see was things, there's that bunny foo-foo in my head or something like that. So I think if it's memorable, easy for the kids to sing along with, and if there's actions as well that they can join in with, that's all well and good.
If you weren't in the Singing Kettle, what you'd like to be doing?
Well, other than being Doctor Who, I think I'd be still a stage manager. I think I'd be something to do with theatre. I think I'd be some capacity. I'd be backstage still, which is what I trained to do rather than being an actor. So I suppose I've got that back up. When this all goes pear-shaped, I can always go back to doing that if the arms still work. So.
Who makes the costumes for the shows and the Singing Kettles?
Well, the costumes that we have at the moment, we tend to have different makers. So my costume was made by a girl called Kate Mackey, who's making my new costume for the next show, Calamity Castle. She lives in Linlithgow in Scotland. Gary's maker is a girl called Alison. She's in Glasgow. And Siliver Arts tend to use a girl called Alison, who lives near them. So we kind of have makers who are quite close to where we live, quite handily. But it changes. It depends who's free. Because we make a couple of costumes a year. The times where we make them might be different every year, and the people who make them might not be available because of just the way work is. So we tend to kind of... It can change if it has to. We don't have regular set of people that make them. Who makes the Singing Kettles? Very long time ago, when Siliver Arts first started the company, they used real metal kettles. Old-fashioned, a bit similar sort of shape to the ones we have now, but the old-fashioned sort of put on a hob-style kettle. Yeah. However, they came a cropper one time when they were doing a show in Dubai, I think it was, where they were doing an outdoor show. And they'd set up the show, went away as the audience came to do the show. When they picked up the first kettle, it was red hot because it had been in the sun, because it was metal. And they were so they were kind of opening the same kettle like this because they were really heated up with the sun. It doesn't happen very often over in this country, but they then, because they were metal and they were small and couldn't get the shape, they found a company, I can't remember the name of the man, Ian Porritt, I think his name was, who made a mould. So we can mould our own Singing Kettles out of fiberglass now. So we have a sort of standard mould, and then we make copies of that original mould, and they're certain build, and they're much lighter, of course, as well. But breaking news is we now have inflatable Singing Kettles. We got Artie found a company in America who can make anything you want inflatable. They use a computer that they can sculpt things and blah, blah, blah. So when we're going to places like the Middle East, we went to the Middle East last year, or going abroad, getting these kettles through customs, because they're big and bulky, it takes up a lot of space. So what Artie thought would be a great idea is if we get inflatable kettles, they would be the same size as the ones we use on stage at the moment, but you can flatten them all down and put them in a small container to take them out. So they've come back, and the tester we got was amazing, because we were thinking, how are you going to make an inflatable? It's absolutely superb. So there's more of them. We had a tester done. There's more of them coming. Whether you see them in a show in this country is unlikely, because we've got the fiberglass ones, but they're more for touring the world with, so that they can flat pack and you can get them in a small case. So yes, that's why. So lots of different people make lots of different kettles. Doesn't really answer your question. But
Thank you.
What is the worst thing about the job?
the worst thing about the job, I suppose. The toughest thing is probably being away from home. If we're away for long periods of time, I mean, this tour down to England is just a couple of days, so that's nice and easy. Sometimes it's quite long, it's a week away and stuff like that, and you miss your families and stuff. So that's probably the hardest thing. But it's early finishes. It's I always say it beats working for a living. They pay me to behave like a 7-year-old, so it doesn't get much better.
What is the best thing about the job?
Best thing about the job? Well, you do get the flip side of being away from home is you do get to see places. So I've been to America, I've been to the Middle East, I've been to Jordan. I've been to these places that I wouldn't have gone to necessarily if I hadn't been to the Singing Kettle. I like going around the country. I like seeing, and I must admit, now that I'm in the show, I see more places than I did when I was the stage manager, because I would appear in the morning, put the set up, take the set down, get in the truck and drive on. I'd never actually see the town, whereas now I can actually have a wee bit of a wander in the shops and stuff. So yeah, there's lots of good things.
How long does it take to set up the stage?
Generally, we come in, say the show's at 2 o'clock today, the crew would arrive at 9 o'clock. So they have a 4-hour setup of the set, the props, the costumes, the lights, the sound. Then there's about an hour between them finishing and the show starting, where we do the sound check and let the audience in. So I would say 5 hours to put it up.
How many people work with the Singing Kettle?
In total, there's 4 people come out on the road with us. So there's Gwyn, who's the stage manager, there's Kenny, who does the sound, Ian, who does the lights, and Donnie, who does the merchandise stall out front. And then back up home in the village of Kettle, which is where the company started, there's Dave, Maureen and Kirsty, who work in the office, so they do the accounts and the serious side of the business. So it's maybe regularly 11, but there's a few other people. There's weekend staff, there's girls working in the shop and stuff like that. So I would say 11 core staff and then a few more after that.
What kinds of jobs do the people who support you off stage do?
There's Gwyn is the stage manager. He's kind of the head of the stage crew, as it were. So he organises when we're going to get in. He speaks to the venues to set up when we're going to get into the show, into the theatres to do that. He also drives the truck and drives the truck back. He's in charge of offloading the stuff when we get it back to the Thornton where it's stored. He picks it up, puts it in the truck. He's in charge of building the set at each venue and putting it up. So he's got quite a full. He also does finding props as well. So things that we need in the show, he'll sometimes go out and buy and keeps everything sort of ship shape during the things break, which quite often they get broken and snap, or if I have a bit of a reputation for being a bit rough with props, so I tend to break things. He'll fix them if I can't fix them. So he does that. Kenny does the sound. So he'll come in. He runs the show. So he's sitting at the back of the hall during the show. He sets all the sound cues doing and makes sure all the levels are right. You'll maybe see him at the start of a show. He'll go off and walk around the theatre, make sure it sounds good all the way round, as much as, because we can sound check it before the show with nobody sitting in the auditorium. But when people come in and fill up the place, it's a very different sound, because lots of bodies soak up the sound in different ways. So what you think sounds brilliant an hour before the show, before the audience come in, sounds completely different once the audience is. So he'll do that, and Ian does the lighting. He'll come in, make sure the lights are pointed at the right places on stage and coloured the right way, and then he'll do the cue to cue. He'll press the buttons and make sure the levels are all right during the show as well.
What is the funniest thing you did on stage?
Funniest do you mean accidents or
Yeah.
mishaps? I fell off the stage while dressed as a pelican.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Yes, that was on Valentine's Day in 1998. Not that I remember the date, but I do, because I remember phoning up my wife saying, "Now don't worry," because I was in hospital in Greenock it turns out I'd cracked my collarbone. But That's probably the most embarrassing thing I've done. I'm trying to think of any other. I haven't split my pants or anything like that, so that's okay. So that's probably the most embarrassing thing I've done on stages.